served business that should have been handled by the 10th Parliament, and they were not able to complete, and the rules allow the serving of such business. The question is how do they come to the 11th Parliament? Do they just show up from somewhere and they are in the committees and they are going on there, or there should be a process by which they come back to Parliament and they go to committee? That is a discussion we have been having, and my guidance on that, so that we are clear, because we have timelines that we impose on committees when they should commence work, and 45 days later they should deliver that work to Parliament. So if we are just there, we have served the business, there is no timeline. How do we assess when the committee should start work and when we should expect business from them? So my guidance is that business has to be reintroduced in Parliament. Served business must be reintroduced. And the date on which it's reintroduced, if it requires preference to committee, that day then begins running. The 45 days begin running from the date of referral to the specific committees, so that we know how to wait for them. We know what to expect from them within what time. We should be using this for all business. And in the case of bills, there is no way the 11th Parliament is going to begin processing bills of 2012, 2014. We don't want to do that, do we? That the 11th Parliament, which commenced in 2021, is handling bills of 2014. No. Reprint those bills, bring them here, make them current for this Parliament, we will handle them. Okay? Imagine the 11th Parliament, which commenced in 2021, handling bills of 2002 or 2015, and so on and so forth. Does not make sense. So we should be doing that. Finally, there's need to relook at our rules of procedure. I've been looking at them. There's some amendments that have been made. We still practice the Commonwealth Parliamentary Practice and Procedure. There are some fundamentals that you cannot alter too much. If you do, you lose sight of what the purpose of that particular provision was. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, we had a discussion with Honorable Asman about Rule 46 and Rule 48 on supplementary questions. And he followed me up and he said, no, Mr. Speaker, I still think on these matters of urgent public importance, supplementary questions should be opened up. I said, okay, let me break it down for you. What is an urgent matter? There's a cholera outbreak in some place. Actually, they're not called questions, they are called matters. There's a cholera outbreak in some place. The member has raised that information. That Honorable Speaker, Honorable Members, Honorable Minister, we have a situation. As of this morning, 4 people have been admitted in critical condition. There's cholera outbreak. Tell me what supplementary question you could put there. Just tell me. Which supplementary question are you going to ask about that information? Does it make sense? So the way these rules are structured, they're meant to capture some moments and deal with them. As I keep explaining, Rule 46 is an exception. All matters that come to this house must come by notice. But when there's a cholera outbreak somewhere, The rules say that one will not require notice. Notice is dispensed with, the member will come, notify the speaker, and come and raise the matter without notice. So that is the distinction that is made under Rule 46. So now you cannot say we should open it up, cholera outbreak, let us start supplementary question. Any member can raise a supplementary. Where are we heading? So these are things I think we should relook at. The other one is that when you are voting by roll call and tally, the doors should be shut. Voting by roll call and tally, 529 members. Honorable Ababiko Jessica may be number one. By the time you reach my man in Ginger, with Z. If you start voting now, by the time you reach Z, it is 7 p.m. And you are saying it should be shut here, and you wait. Does it make sense? Because vote by roll call and tally is, they are calling you by name. You don't have to sit here. But the rules now say, you pack in all the members, lock the doors, and you begin vote by roll call and tally. It doesn't make sense. So some of these things, we need to review them over time so that we have rules that are functional and serve the purpose. I thought I should say this, and in the next few days, we should be starting the process of reviewing our rules. I have requests from, yes, Honorable Asman.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker, for the guidance that you are giving as far as the rules are concerned. There are two issues that perhaps your office should continue to guide, and that relates to the practice set by you, the presiding officers. It is becoming very apparent that whoever presides adopts a practice which may be at variance with the rules. And you can understand the dilemma the members sometimes find themselves into. And going forward, how then, when do I stick to the rules and when do I stick to the practice? And sometimes, Right Honourable Speaker, this practice is not embedded in the rules. So it is going to be extremely difficult if there is no harmony from the presiding officers. Finally, Right Honourable Speaker, this Parliament, the 11th Parliament, to the best of my recollection, has not yet considered the rules to govern us for the next 5 years. If my recollection serves me right, the rules we are using now were made by the 10th Parliament. I am aware that they were passed towards the end of the 10th Parliament. So your advice and guidance of a reconsideration of the rules, I think, is very urgent. Otherwise, you are going to find situations where people are asking for supplementary procedure, supplementary question, because some of the presiding officers actually entertain it. So I think, Right Honourable Speaker, bear with the dilemma we have found ourselves into and let the matter be streamlined as a matter of urgency. I thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
That is work in progress, but on the issue of rules of procedure, Chief Justice then Benjamin Udoki, I think was on the 19th of May, 2011, made a ruling on that. The rules of procedure of Parliament will always be rules of procedure of Parliament, any Parliament. So there is no rule for 11th Parliament, there is no rule for 10th Parliament, there is no rule for 9th Parliament. It will always be rules of procedure of Parliament. He gave that guidance, and we have been bound by it. That's why now we no longer put dates. We no longer put number of Parliament, which Parliament it is in the rules of procedure, based on the guidance given by the then Chief Justice Benjamin Udoki. But be that as it may, there is need, as you say, for harmony. And if you see where we begin now tearing it apart and setting procedures that are not really within the rules, it becomes very difficult to play by the rules because anything goes. That's why I am insisting. Let's play by the rules. Let's play by the rules. It helps. Mr. Honorable Bahati, you have a matter?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just a point of clarification from you. Previously, in the beginning with the 8th Parliament and 9th Parliament, every time we were closing the Parliament, we would move a motion to save the work of that particular Parliament to be inherited by the incoming Parliament. And I think in the 10th Parliament, we did the same. And the logic was that sometimes you have a bill in the House, and the committees have done some tremendous work about it, and the institution of Parliament through the clerk have saved that work. And therefore, it would be much easier to process it by the incoming Parliament. But the ruling that now we are receiving through you, does it mean that all the work that we had saved in the 10th Parliament now have got to be accommodated in your new ruling? I beg to.
Look at it this way, Honorable Bahati. There was a committee on defense and internal affairs of the 10th Parliament. Its membership was known, its leadership was known. They processed some work. The work was not complete, it was caught up by time, and by law it should have expired completely. But we have this animal of saving it for the next Parliament. Now the next Parliament comes with completely new members. They never participated in any of those debates. They never listened to any witness. In other words, the minutes don't show that they were there. Now you want them to be the one, the new chair of the now Defense and Internal Affairs Committee, who was probably not even part of the other committee of the 10th Parliament, to be the one now to come and present this report and own it. Are we being fair to the process? Are we being fair to the process? Yes, Prof.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. My name is Mshemes Elijah, Member of Parliament, Shema County South. I'm a member of the Business Committee, and the meeting we had, because the Business Committee has all the chairpersons of the committees, we are given detailed information about the previous work. My view is that if the committees find that a bill, either which expired or had reached a certain stage, which is well explained, is very important, it would be reintroduced as new business. I want to agree with you, Mr. Speaker. I would be very uncomfortable to sit here and say, 11th Parliament, I'm debating a bill of 2014. So since we have detailed information as chairpersons of the committees, we'll see in our committees something we still regard is very important and reintroduce it as a new business without necessarily referring to the 10th and the 9th Parliament. So I would request, honorable colleagues, we go with the guidance of the Speaker. It is the right one, and it will put us a notch higher in our business.
Now we are going to start debating this? No. I see everybody now opening their copies of rules. Yes, let me first hear Honorable Barumans.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, and the honorable members. In the past, transiting from the 8th to the 9th, we used to move a motion, just saved. But later on, when we're amending the rules, we put a provision to accommodate this issue. And Rule 235 speaks to the lapse or reinstatement of parliamentary business upon dissolution of the House. So we have a clearly laid down provision, which is in consonance with your guidance on how business which lapsed in the preceding parliament can be reintroduced in the subsequent parliament. So we may not need to spend a lot of time because the rules already provide guidance on that.
That's precisely what I am saying, because right now, the government thinks the business is already there with Parliament. So they are waiting for Parliament to process business that has never been reintroduced. It has to be reintroduced to Parliament so that it is the current business of this Parliament. We're not saying you throw it away, no, but reintroduce it. Because how do we capture it in the record of the 11th Parliament that this business so exists? That's the point I'm making. And I'm glad we are now clear about this. So Bukonjo West, please let's proceed with business. Unless it's really very burning matter.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I really want to thank you for your distinguished leadership. Mr. Speaker, sir, I totally and entirely agree with you. But there are matters that are raised on this floor that relate with human existence. A case in point, Mr. Speaker, yourself in that seat directed the chairperson of Internal Defense Committee to bring on this floor the report on the Kasese November 2016 clashes. Mr. Speaker, sir, the chair then, who happens to be the Minister for Lands, literally decided to keep away from the House. I observed that. Honorable Doreen, the woman MP former for Amlata, took over as chairperson, same committee. You directed again, bring the committee on the Kasese, the report on the Kasese November 2016 clashes. Like her predecessor, she disappeared from the House. Mr. Speaker, sir, as you're fully aware, this is something that touches on human life. I come from Kasese, Mr. Speaker. We continue to lose people. In Kenya, just last Sunday.
Honorable, aren't you stretching it now out of context?
Not really in a context, Mr. Speaker, so what I'm trying to appeal to the character and judgment to my fellow colleagues and to your leadership, Mr. Speaker, that there are certain businesses that were in the previous parliament, the 10th parliament, they cannot wait, and they should just simply be one of them. Because the community back home and us as leaders are restless, seeing our own down in prison, untried, and yet you, as the leader of this house, has continuously directed for this community. So I'm yet to see or to know the chairperson of the Internal Affairs, the new chairperson. Certainly, Mr. Speaker, like you've guided, I'll get to her or him and ask that this report about the Kasese clashes, November 2016, is presented and submitted before this House like you directed. Mr. Speaker, I really want to thank you.
Honorable member, you sound like you're from a border where certain practices are conducted. You have successfully done that right now. This thing called going outside border posts, but still being able to access markets. But I would not like to say the chairpersons disappeared. Chairpersons in this house and members don't disappear. They just get engaged elsewhere. So the record should be corrected to reflect that chairpersons don't disappear. They just sometimes get busy somewhere else. Yes, member for Moyo West has an issue. Right Honorable Speaker and my dear colleagues, first of all, I'd like to thank God. I'd like to congratulate you and welcome you into the House. I'm called Alerutom Aza, Member of Parliament for West Moyo County. I rise on a matter of national importance. Urgent. Which is very urgent. Thank you. And the matter is about the displacement of people from their original place of stay. Mr. Speaker, on 23rd August 2021, over 80 local people in Moyo district were displaced from their grass-thatched houses, which were banned following claims that they were practicing witchcraft. Totally banned, with all the properties therein. The incidents which involved the same clan members of Paleore occurred in Imeria village, Pajakiri Parish, in the newly created Ocha sub-county in Moyo district. And over 40 houses were burnt there by displacing over 80 people. The elderly, the children, and those who are sick were all displaced and running up and down, and no food, and so on. Mr. Speaker, our prayers. There's need for urgent relief assistance from the Ministry of Relief, Disaster Preparedness for the displaced people. I hope she's around. I don't see her. Please, we need urgent assistance for this elderly, the sick, the displaced, and the children who are running up and down. Items like blankets, utensils, tents, foodstuff, clothing, and so on and so forth. Because this is now rainy season, we have heavy rains in Moyo district as I talk now. And my fear is that they can easily get other issues related to their health. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, there's need really for the ministry to come out with stringent, deterrent, and strong laws so as to punish the perpetrators of mob justice. Because you cannot just claim somebody is a witch, is practicing witchcraft, and then you go take the law into your hands and then burn houses, thereby displacing people. So there's need for really deterrent laws that can stop people from practicing mob justice. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, government. Right Honorable.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Let me take also this opportunity to welcome you back, and we thank the Almighty for keeping you and bring you back the way you are. I want to yes, Honorable, to respond to Honorable's issue about the people who have been displaced because of suspected witchcraft. I have taken note. I'm going to liaise with the concerned ministry, and we see how those people can be helped, especially in terms of relief aid. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Uganda North. The Honorable Xavier.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. My name is Choma Xavier, MP representing Uganda North. Right Honorable Speaker, I'm rising on a matter of public importance, the urgent one. On Saturday, the 21st of August, that is this year, strong rains, windy rains, hailstones hit my constituency, and the entire parish was completely ravaged. We lost lives, Right Honorable Speaker. 2 people died instantly. Others were admitted and they are still in the hospital. Houses were destroyed to the extent that it would hardly be difficult to attach a certain roof found in a given place to a certain house. Even right now, some people are homeless, they are displaced because of that strong hailstorms.
Honorable, you're covering your face.
Oh, sorry, Right Honorable Speaker, it is not intentional. Right Honorable Speaker, crops were destroyed, animals lost, birds died, properties destroyed. It is in a state of a disarray. So, Right Honorable Speaker, my prayer, while we are taking the appropriate measures of writing to OPM, my immediate prayer for my people is to call for the immediate and urgent intervention by the Office of the Prime Minister and by the Minister in charge of disaster and preparedness to come to the rescue of my people. Actually, whereas Muzda Parish was adversely affected, even the neighboring parish of Kashozi was equally affected. Mr. Speaker, I visited this place on Sunday and I was speechless. And I have seen our good Right Honorable Prime Minister visiting some places. This is my prayer again. How I wish she could go and visit this place, or the Minister of Disaster Preparedness, since she cannot be everywhere. So, Right Honorable Speaker, thank you for the opportunity, and I call upon the attention of the Right Honorable Speaker and the relevant minister to do the needful. I thank you.
I do hope in both cases that the report from the CAOs that is required to be sent to the disaster preparedness unit have been submitted. This is for information of Parliament. The Premier will act, but the formal documentation at least should be with the responsible department. Yes, Honorable.
Right Honorable Speaker, with your permission, may I be allowed to raise some of the pictures of the property destroyed and others on the floor?
We just want response.
Thank you.
Just want, right, Honorable?
Right Honorable Speaker, I think like you have guided, I request the members to put this in writing. You send them to the Ministry of Disaster and the copy. You write to the OPM and copy to the Ministry of Disaster so that appropriate action can be taken. I thank you.
Yes, but in the meantime, there should be governmental presence. People should see that the government is here. While all these other technicalities are going on, somebody should show up and talk to people. It's good for people to understand that the government is standing with them. Yes, Honorable? Still another matter?
Right Honorable Speaker, I entirely agree with you, and I would like to inform the Honorable Minister that at the moment, there are people who do not have where to sleep. As I've said, we are in the process of writing. We know the formalities. One homestead, Right Honorable Speaker, had 3 houses destroyed completely. Even right now, remember we have the issue of COVID-19. Formerly, people would easily share with others. But now, it is very, very difficult. Those who are displaced do not have any shelter, Right Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Right, Honorable, you might have to see how to, yes? Are you going there, Honorable Barimonsi?
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker and the Honorable Member. Just wanted to provide information that yes, we come here as members of Parliament to raise these issues which occur in our constituencies. And like we have guided, Usually we expect that when there is a disaster in a community, our government people, particularly the sub-county chief, should assemble a team which would visit the ravaged area and even take photographs and pictures and detail what has been damaged. There is a disaster preparedness committee at a district chaired by the CAO. They should be able to consider this report and then submit it to the office of the Prime Minister. So our work is supplementary as members of parliament. I think we have guided. That process should be immediate because these are urgent issues, so that even by the time we raise them as MPs, a process has already taken place, like that relief maybe has been mobilized, because most often by the time we raise it, people are already suffering. So I just wanted to provide this information that also as MPs, we should engage the CAO and the district leaders to always immediately take action, because we are here in Kampala when these disasters occur in our constituencies, especially for us who represent distant constituencies. So I just wanted to provide this information to reinforce your point. But like the Right Honourable Prime Minister said, as government, we shall take it up and see how the member of parliament shall be supported and the people of Uganda North.
The Honorable Barrio Monsi is the acting chief whip, so I think he's speaking in that capacity. Soy, the Honorable Chema Sweat.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to thank you for coming back to the House. Right Honorable Speaker and honorable members, last week on Thursday, 19th August 2021, I left for Dar es Salaam to witness the swearing-in ceremony of Honorable James Kakosa, who was elected to fill the vacancy in Uganda's representation at the East African Legislative Assembly. Having been cleared by the Deputy Speaker as the Deputy Chairperson, Committee on East African Community Affairs.
Honorable, please go to the urgent matter.
Right Honorable Speaker, the matter of national importance that I'm raising, which is urgent, and I'm raising it to this House, Mr. Speaker, is the mandatory PCR test at the airport by all returnees, both citizens and non-citizens. I noted that whereas the Minister of Health in its endeavor is trying to mitigate the influx of new variants of COVID-19 into the country, the process is precarious and unnecessarily expensive. The private labs at the airport health are charging $65, Mr. Speaker, an equivalent of 250,000 Uganda shillings. When I made some inquiries about the tests at the airport on whether the recent Afghan refugees were all subjected to the same PCR tests, I was reliably informed that indeed all the refugees were tested, but on the account of government of Uganda. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, this is not a good message to Ugandans being subjected to tests at expensive costs in their own country, and yet non-Ugandans are being catered for by the government. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, as if the high costs are not enough.
I like you to tell me the urgent matter, or we'll pause it there.
Yeah,
What is the urgent matter?
The question is the high cost of testing at the airport. Secondly, the disorganized manner of handling the process at the airport. If you are to go there today, Mr. Speaker, you realize that the whole process is disorganized. Buses, people are bundled into the buses and taken elsewhere to be tested, and they are not tested at the airport. This is so grievous. Information.
You have the information, you're informing the House, you cannot allow information.
Mr. Speaker, this matter is a serious matter, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, where they were taken, these Ugandans and non-Ugandans, they were taken to some beach, not again at the airport. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, it infringes on the rights of an individual to travel peacefully, safely within Uganda. Imagine if somebody had made prior bookings with the taxi operators and the termination of the networks aren't working, how would you access the taxi services within the country?
I think it's time for the Honorable Minister of Health to deal with this matter. She's right
Yes.
here. Can we give her a chance now?
Let's give her.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I think our boss has failed to tame her even.
She's right here.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, globally, all airports are screening and testing people for reasons that we all know, and that is COVID-19, but also to prevent importation of variants which keep on coming up from time to time. Entebbe International Airport is a small airport with limited space. Apart from that, there are also ongoing works. Whereas we would have loved to test people at the airport, it is not possible because of the size, the ongoing works, and the overcrowding. In addition, our airport is undergoing an evaluation for us to comfortably start flying Uganda Airlines. So we cannot afford to overcrowd the airport again. Right Honorable Speaker, the ongoing testing at Pino Beach is collaborative work between Ministry of Health, Civil Aviation Authority, and the private sector. I visited Pino Beach myself. There is no crowding there. The process is smooth. The buses in which people are taken are very beautiful buses. The cost of $65, which Ugandans complain about, Right Honorable Speaker, it may be high, but compared to other countries, it is relatively cheap. We cannot afford to import other variants. We must test. I thank you.
Supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, the information from the minister is good. PCR testing for COVID in Tanzania is a preserve of government of Tanzania. But with Uganda, it's about private entities. Mr. Speaker, thermocyclers machines, which are meant for testing COVID, one of them costs only $5,000. If we take a projection of 3,000 sub-counties or town councils in Uganda, the cost would be $15 million.
Supplementary question?
Yes.
Raise the
$15 million. That will translate to 54 billion shillings.
Honorable Samaswet, what is the supplementary matter you are raising?
The supplementary matter, Mr. Speaker, is that we would like to interest ourselves on these laboratories, whether government or private. And who are they? What about the transport companies? Which are they? They are owned by who?
Thank you, Honorable Samaswet.
Right Honorable Speaker, I request the Honorable Member to visit the place and interest himself in the processes. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we now go to the order paper, Honorable Members? Can we now go to the order paper?
Item number 3 on the order paper, motion for adoption of the report of the Sectoral Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industry on building a more resilient sector. Lessons learned from a socio-economic impact assessment of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism, trade, and industry sector.
Yes, Honorable Papa.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay a report on the Sectoral Committee on Tourism, Trade, and Industry on building a more resilient sector.
Let the records capture that.
I beg to lay the minutes of the Committee on Tourism, Trade, and Industry.
The record also capture the minutes of this meeting.
Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to request, honorable members, you have a copy of this report on your iPads. The report is a comprehensive report of 50 pages. However, I have summarized it, and I wish to make my presentation on 20 pages only. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. On behalf of the Committee of Trade, Tourism, and Industry, I stand to present a report on the Sectoral Committee on Tourism, Trade, and Industry on building a more resilient sector, lessons learned from the socio-economic impact assessment of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism, trade, and industry sectors. Right Honorable Speaker, the Committee on Trade, Tourism, and Industry undertook an exercise to assess the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism, trade, industry sectors, and to propose a way forward in view of building a more resilient sector. The committee now reports to the House. The background is indicated on page 1 of the report, honorable members. The rationale. In accordance with the oversight mandate, the Committee on Tourism, Trade, and Industry has conducted a study of the socio-economic impact of the COVID-19 on the tourism, trade, and industry sectors, with the study aiming as much as possible to use the lessons learned to propose to Parliament a way forward in order to inform and shape what the new normal of the tourism, trade, and industry sector should look like in a bid to improve the country's adaptation to the COVID-19 virus and to build a more resilient economy. The scope, honorable members, the committee considered the subject with respect to the 3 sectors, tourism, trade, and industry, while cognizant of the fact that the aforementioned sectors do not exist in isolation. The committee tried as much as possible to limit its analysis to those sectors without delving much into other sectors, for example, health, education, except where it could not be avoided. The objectives, the committee sought to find out the following. 1, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism, trade, industry sectors. 2, the factors that have exacerbated the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the sectors. 3, the efficacy of the strategies to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the sectors. The methodology used, the committee adopted the following methods of work. Meeting with key stakeholders, the stakeholders are listed on page 3 and 4 of the report, honorable members. The memoranda, we also received written memoranda from key stakeholders. 3, we carried out field visits in accordance with Rule 202 of the Rules of Procedure. The committee divided itself into subcommittees, which constituted delegations and conducted regional visits from 30th July to 2nd August 2021 in the selected district as follows. Northern Region in the districts of Amuru, Gulu, Lira, and Noya. Eastern Region in the districts of Busia, Jinja, Chibuku, and Mbale. Western Region in the districts of Fort Portal, Rubirizi, Rengo, and Mbarara. A list of the respondents and the groups that the committee interacted with in the field is provided in Appendix A on that report, honorable members.
Chair, some members seem to have a problem with their accessing the report on the iPads. Is it a general problem? No report. It's there, not there? No. It is there. Please up your skills so that you can access this thing. It's there. Other members have them on the iPad. Refresh. I'm told you the word is refresh. The report is there. Proceed, Chair.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. The committee also carried out desk research to establish the statistics to enrich it. Section 2, Honorable Members, on page 6, observations and analysis. This section presents the committee's findings and an analysis of the data generated by the various methodologies. Honorable Members, page 6, 7, and 8 have the details and statistics of the trade, tourism, and industry sector's contribution to the economy before the pandemic. Negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism, trade, and industry sectors. Honorable Members, 1, loss of market and slump in sales and revenues. The study of the business entities indicated that there was a substantial fall in the effective demand in the economy, which affects access to markets. Players in the tourism, trade, and industry sectors are thus facing staggering losses due to the interruption of the business operations. This is evidenced in the different sectors as follows below. Tourism. Visitation to tourist attractions reduced drastically as shown in the table on page 9, Honorable Members. National parks. In 2019, we had 323,861 visitors. In 2020, we had 101,331 visitors. This is a negative 69% decline. 2, work. Uganda, this is the zoo, Honorable Members. Uganda Wildlife Education Center. In 2019, we had 383,398 visitors. In 2020, we had 67,789 visitors. This is a negative 82% drop. And several examples as indicated in that table. The committee was informed that such low numbers were last recorded in 2002. Tourist arrivals in Uganda in 2020, the foreign visitors to Uganda dropped by 69% to 473,085 from 1,542,620 visitors recorded in 2019. The tourist arrivals in 2020 declined to levels of 2005. Foreign exchange earning, Honorable Members. The foreign exchange earnings dropped threefold in the year 2020 from $1.6 billion that the Uganda earned from foreign tourists in 2019 to $0.5 billion in the year 2020, a 73% decline. Accommodation facilities. The country registered a decline in hotel room occupancy rates from 51.9% in 2019 to an average 20% in 2020. Additionally, the sector registered booking cancellations in over 90% of the hotel facilities. This led to the loss of revenue amounting to $320.8 million, which is equivalent to 1.9 trillion in addition to other business losses. Meetings, incentives, conferences, and events. At least 85% of booking meetings, events, and conferences to be hosted in Uganda were cancelled in 2020. For example, international meetings and events such as the UN G77 summit that was scheduled to take place in Uganda in April 2020 and was to attract participants from 136 member states was cancelled. Tourist tour operator businesses, Honorable Members. 9 in 10 tour operator businesses registered client cancellation bookings between 2020 March and June 2020. As a result of this cancellation, tourism revenues in excess of $30.4 million had been lost in just 4 months between June and March 2020. Loss of revenue in tourism ministries, departments, and agencies. Overall, tourism sites in the country registered 77% decline in tourism volumes. The table is shown on page 10, Honorable Members. I'll give just 2 examples. Non-tax revenue performance, financial year 2020-2021. UWA, Uganda Wildlife Authority, Actual non-tax revenue collections financial year 2018-2019, we had 124 billion plus. Actual non-tax revenue collections financial year 2020-2021, we had 28 billion. Work, actual non-tax revenue collections financial year 2018-2019, we had 4 billion. Actual non-tax revenue collections 2020-21, we had just 1.5 billion plus. Honorable members, the effect on transport, logistics, and other aspects of the business value chain. The restrictions in movement particularly affected the transport and logistics part of the business organization's value chain. Due to the ban on the inter-district movement and travel, districts were cut off from business centers in the neighboring district. The committee notes that during the lockdown of June to July 2021, movement between districts was banned. During its field visits, the committee found that markets in cities such as Jinja and Mbale were severely affected by the inter-district movement ban because most of the people who work in and buy from the markets come from outside the districts to engage trade activities there. Results from the committee's field visits indicate that border districts were impacted more by the pandemic than those that do not lie at the borders in terms of loss of market and slump in sales. This is because that border districts were occasionally left in lockdown even after other districts were released from the lockdown. For example, Kasese. Increase in street vending and reduction in business in markets. Honorable members, the committee also found that the ban on movement constituted a closure of access to traders' ordinary places of work. Hence, the traders resorted to operating in the streets, roadsides to make a living, causing overcrowding in the streets and reducing the business in the markets. The other sector that was impacted, industry, honorable members, reduction in average plant utilization rates. Average plant utilization rates by manufacturers reduced from about 70% because of the COVID-19 pandemic to between 30% and 40% during the COVID-19 for small to medium-sized farms and 50% for the larger farms. We also had a decline in annual growth of industrial output. Annual growth of industrial output declined from 9.1% in the financial year 2018-2019 to 3.3% in the financial year 2019-2020. Rent arrears and failure to meet other operating costs. Honorable members, tenants could no longer pay their rent because they did not make or receive any income. Businesses also lost capital through paying back loans and meeting other expenses outside the business operations. For service businesses such as hotels, where hotel occupancy rates had dropped tremendously, operating costs both regarding utilities and wages remained constant. Meeting these operational costs remained a serious challenge, honorable members. Difficulty in servicing loans. The Minister of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives informed the committee that over 90% of both fixed and working capital used in the trade sector is obtained through borrowing, through various avenues, money loan sharks, banks, circles, etc. According to the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, non-performing loans in the trade and commerce sector rose from a quarterly average of 5.0% between July and September 2019 to 7.4% between January and March 2020, and 8% between January and March 2021. We also had depreciation, spoilage, and wear of business assets, honorable members. According to the United Arcaders Traders Association, restaurants and food vendors lost food, fridges, ovens, and other cookery units as they had no chance, to collect them the day the lockdown was effected. Several traders had complained of losing their merchandise to rust, mold, leakages, etc. Those traders that deal in perishable goods suffered obvious losses, honorable members. In a meeting with Mbaraba owners, they stated that they had enormous losses because their drinks, such as beers, had expired. Yes, beer expires. Difficulty with paying taxes and other statutory charges, honorable members. The committee found that businesses were finding it difficult to meet their legal obligations in taxes and other statutory charges. This was generally because they had made, if at all, only major incomes during the duration of the pandemic, and particularly on the days within which the country was on lockdown. We also had decline in incomes and tax revenues accruing from the sectors. Tourism, the committee was informed that owing to the COVID-19 pandemic, 88% of tourism enterprises lost 50% of their incomes, while 1 out of every 10 enterprises lost 100% of their incomes. Trade, more than 67% of the micro, small, medium enterprises have recorded 50% reduction in incomes during the first lockdown. Tax revenue from the transport and storage sector declined by 31%. We also had other challenges like closure of businesses, rising levels of unemployment in the sector. Other concerns voiced by the respondents include anxiety, mental health issues, insecurity, harassment of the traders by security operatives, hiked prices of goods and services. In conclusion, honorable members, the COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent containment measures have negatively affected the tourism, trade, and industry sectors, with disproportionate impact of the three sectors understudied. The tourism sector has been hit the most negatively, particularly owing to the travel restrictions, other associated activity and other associated activities. As a result, the tourism sector registered a massive business loss, characterized by private business shutdown, tourist booking cancellation, closure of businesses, with the resultant loss of jobs and livelihood. The tourism sector also generally suffered from reduced visibility of its activities. While the sector has already started showing some signs of recovery, some of the measures put in place to mitigate the impact of the pandemic are yet to produce their desired results. The trade and industry sectors were also negatively impacted by the pandemic. Similar to tourism, they experienced a loss of market and slump in the sales and revenue, rent arrears, and failure to meet other operating costs, difficulty in servicing loans, depreciation, spoilage, and way of business assets, difficulty with paying taxes and other statutory charges, decline in incomes and tax revenue accruing from the sectors, closure of business, and overall reduction in investment, rising levels of unemployment, among others. However, the industry sector appears not to have been hit quite as hard as its counterparts. Furthermore, it appears to have bounced back much faster, with manufacturing particularly seen to be playing a critical role and supporting government efforts too. In the fight against COVID-19 pandemic, several factories have undertaken research and repurposed their production lines and produce essential products. Honorable members, we also have underlying factors that exacerbated the negative impact of the pandemic. These are basically the factors that were there in existence before the pandemic, but made it worse. One, the policy framework. Honorable members, we have limited funding for these sectors. The sector budgets tend to be inadequate. For example, tourism is the largest foreign exchange earner of this country, and during our budgeting process, we only allocated about 0.4%. The tourism sector agencies are sustained by non-tax revenue they collect, and you have already seen that non-tax revenue has also been affected. The sector revenue projections in the budget financial year 2021-2022 will not be realized due to the COVID-19 containment measures. Two, lack of commercial attaches in our foreign embassies stock missions. Honorable members, the commercial attaché is a person posted to a foreign embassy to promote the economic interests of his or her country. The committee noted that the minister responsible for trade had interviewed commercial attachés to work in our foreign missions and submitted the list to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. However, currently diplomatic attachés are working as commercial attachés. We also have a challenge of high loan interest rates. Honorable members, you know this was already there in existence even before the pandemic. This was a very big challenge when the pandemic came, and even Bank of Uganda reduced the CBR rate from 7.5% to 6.5% in order to resuscitate the economy post-COVID. However, most commercial banks did not comply with this COVID-19 economic recovery, this may point to the lack of transparency, duplication, and poor accountability. In conclusion, overall, the lack of transparency, limited participation, poor targeting of the intended beneficiaries, and weak accountability mechanism will remain key challenges in the utilization and disbursement of the economic stimulus package. While the tourism sector was heavily affected by government containment measures, the economic stimulus package design have so far not achieved their intended objectives. The government also had efforts to restructure loans, honorable members, while government through Bank of Uganda has guided borrowers and banks to hold negotiation with an aim to restructure, reschedule loans and interest payments as businesses recover from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. The committee observes that this has instead, to a large extent, served to disadvantage the borrowers. Loan restructure intervention did not only yield any result, since the longer the loan stretches, the more the customer has to pay due to the application of the principle of time value for money. Hence, this intervention instead worked to benefit the banks. Intervention regarding taxation, taxes, honorable members, government introduced provisions to ease the burden of payment of tax due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. For instance, a person registered as a taxpayer under and who was liable to pay tax on or after 1st April 2020 and before 30th June 2020 had their liability to pay the tax deferred until 30th September 2020. Additionally, no interest or penalty was to accumulate on the outstanding amount of tax during the period referred to above. Furthermore, an interest on tax areas that were unpaid by 30th June by a taxpayer who voluntarily complies with their tax obligation would be waived. Additionally, up-country accommodation facilities in Kampala-based hotels were exempted from VAT up to 30th June 2021. The grace period of 1 month before renewal of driving permits. While after the most recent lockdown that was lifted on 31st July 2021, the Ministry of Works and Transport provided a grace period of 1 month for renewal of driving permits. The committee finds the extension of time insufficient to allow most drivers get enough funds for payment for the renewal. The African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. The committee was informed that government had put in place a medium-term measure to facilitate access to the new regional markets under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. The committee hopes that the medium-term plan will yield positive results. Honorable members, much as we had challenges, there were also opportunities created by the pandemic. One, opportunities in trade. The Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development informed the committee that annual coffee exports continued to increase in both volume and value. Coffee exports in the financial year 2020-2021 reached 6.1 million, 60 kilograms of kg bags, 6.1 million bags of 60 kgs, up to 5.05 million bags in financial year 2019-2020, and 4.18 million bags in 2018-2019. Opportunities in the industry sector. This is page 37, honorable members. An average growth in the industry, industrial output recovered slightly from 3.3% in the financial year 2019-2020 to 3.4% in the financial year 2020-2021. The Minister of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives reported that over 160 factories had undertaken research, repurposed the production lines and to produce essential products, including PPEs, that's protective personal equipment, sanitizers and disinfectors, clinical care equipment, supportive care drugs, herbal remedies, food salt, etc. Honorable members, page 39, which are the recommendations of the committee. The committee makes the following recommendations. One, specific recommendations for the tourism sector. Honorable members and Right Honorable Speaker, the committee recommends that the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development urgently operationalizes the Tourism Development Levy that is already provided for in the Uganda Tourism Board Act, CAP 333. It is hoped that this will provide a sustainable source of funding for the tourism sector. The committee proposes a levy of $10 to be charged on each ticket for every person who departs from Uganda by air. It is proposed, pardon? For every Ugandan, it is proposed that the tourism development levy be collected, managed, and utilized as follows. 1, 70%, that 70% of the funds will be used to support the revival of business of the private sector actors, stock players in the tourism sector. Considering they have borne the brunt of the COVID-19 in their businesses, that the 70% be managed by Post Bank, because we have already seen challenges with UDB. Since Post Bank is a government bank, the committee recommends that this 70% be sent to Post Bank for the tourism sector. The criteria for accessing these fees from the bank will be decided upon by the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development in consultation with the relevant stakeholders. That 20% will be appropriated to the Uganda Tourism Board to intensify marketing of Destination Uganda and of our tourism products at both domestic and international levels. The levy will be collected by Uganda Revenue Authority, who will also retain 10% as a collection fee, honorable members. 2, review of existing taxes, fees, and licenses in the tourism sector. The committee proposes a review of all existing taxes, fees, and licenses that are specific to the tourism sector with a view to harmonize them. For example, the issue of the hotel owners. 3, affordable accommodation and transport for domestic tourists. Honorable members, in a bid to reduce the overdependence on international tourists, the committee recommends that Uganda Wildlife Authority should encourage investors to provide affordable transportation and accommodation options for domestic tourists. 2, the Ministry of Works Transport should fast track the expansion of Entebbe International Airport and upgrade the regional aerodromes to respond to the challenging needs of the travelers in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Increased subventions. Honorable members, the committee recommends that government increases the budget subventions to the tourism sector, ministry, department, and agencies to enable them remain afloat. For example, as we speak, Uganda Wildlife Authority does not have money to pay salaries of the staff. Specific recommendations for the trade sector. Honorable members, payment of property rates, rent, and utilities. This was one of the biggest challenges, I think also to the honorable members, property rates and rent. In order to ease the financial pressure suffered by the tenants and landlords, the committee recommends that local government should suspend payment by landlords of 50% of the property tax payable per year. In turn, the landlords will forego the rent that is demanded for the tenants for the 1 month who are in the lockdown. This exemption will apply only to arcades, shopping malls, bars, nightclubs, sport betting clubs, and health clubs. Extension of period for renewal of driving permits. Honorable members, the committee recommends that for the taxi drivers and border riders whose driving permits expire during the lockdown, the Ministry of Works Transport should extend the period for renewal of their permits to 6 months. License fees. Honorable members, the committee recommends that the Uganda Revenue Authority and local authorities maintain pre-lockdown license fees for a period of 1 year to allow traders time to recuperate or recover from the economic shocks they suffered during the pandemic. Honorable members, when we visited Kabarole, the local government had increased the license fees by 200%. So the committee recommends the licenses remain as was before the pandemic. Alternative and cheaper transport mechanism. The Ministry of Works Transport should strengthen the capacity of the Uganda Railways Corporation so that the railway transport is a reliable and cheaper option, should be strengthened to ease transportation of business cargo. Legal framework. Honorable members, enact and enforce a law on consumer protection. Government is urged to prioritize tabling a bill on the consumer protection with an aim to protect the interests of consumers in Uganda. The enactment of a consumer protection law would help protect consumer rights against fraudulent and deceptive practices by sellers and suppliers of goods and services, and promote ethical standards in commercial transactions. It would specify unfair practices through which big companies gain an advantage over small competitors, or through which they mislead consumers, and provide for a redress mechanism for consumer claims. For instance, it could provide a direct action against offending undertakings by prosecuting them or arbitrary increasing prices of goods and requiring dominant undertakings to reduce their prices. Honorable members, the committee also proposes to develop a competition policy and enact a law on competition. The committee urges government puts in place a legal framework to govern competition, including a policy, law, and regulations to be employed by government to ensure that the markets remain competitive through maintaining a fair degree of competition by eliminating restrictive business practices by private enterprises. An agency to regulate anti-competitive practices would also be necessary. A competition law would be expected to protect small firms against their more powerful rivals to encourage competition in the economy by 1, prohibiting restrictive trade practices, controlling monopolies, encouraging enterprise innovation and efficiency, and widening the choice to allow consumers to buy goods and services they want at the best possible prices. Honorable members, a competition law, for example, when you look at Garden City, you have a large supermarket, Mega Standard up, you have a large supermarket down. This is what we are talking about. Enactment and implement a law on local content. Honorable members, the committee recommends that the National Local Content Bill 2019 be included among the lapsed business to be saved from the 10th Parliament so that it is considered expeditiously by the 11th Parliament. Alternatively, the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development should table a fresh bill if necessary. Enactment of the Local Content Bill will ensure that products made in Uganda are given a higher advantage to compete in the price of procurement so as to encourage local manufacturers. The committee submits that should government delay to table the proposed and critical bills, the committee shall evoke Rule 123 and 159B of the Rules of Procedure of Parliament and initiate private member bills. 6, business communities and associations. Formation of associations as lobbying groups. Honorable members, business communities are urged to form strong associations as lobbying groups that can voice their concerns during this and other crises. The same traders associations could be used as channels to oversee the enforcement of standard operating procedures, the Ministry of Trade, for the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. For example, when interacted with CACIT, they say they don't have authority over some traders who are not members of CACIT. Revival of the Uganda National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Honorable members, additionally, in the alternative, the committee recommends that the Uganda National Chamber of Commerce and Industry should be revived. As you are aware, it is currently under an injunction. The committee recommends that the Chamber of Commerce should be restructured, strengthened, and revived in order to support it to be a forefront for lobbying on behalf of the business community. It would, however, require provision of financial support up to a point in time when it can stand on its own feet. That way, it will have the necessary capacity to support the businesses by amplifying their voices and keeping their footprints visible in the world of business. 7, commercial attaches. The committee recommends that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in consultation with the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperative, prioritizes the deployment of commercial attaches to our foreign missions that will assist Uganda in promoting her tourism and trade interests abroad. Specific recommendation, honorable members, import substitution. The Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development and the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperative should support the pursuance of the long-term import substitution policy. It is proposed that the local manufacturers are supported through reduction of taxes on raw materials and that the ministries transmit industrial knowledge to the population to encourage Ugandans engage in manufacturing. That way, Uganda will not have to be too dependent on imports, which proved not to be reliable enough during the pandemic. General recommendations, honorable members, on page 43, mass vaccination. The committee recommends that the Ministry of Health prioritizes the mass vaccination of the workforce and the entire population that is eligible, up to at least 22 million people, to prevent the economy from having to be put through another lockdown. Additionally, the vaccines should be extended near to the trader workplaces of work, residences, in order to avoid overcrowding and encourage traders to get vaccinated. Cost of borrowing, honorable members, the committee recommends government should review the relevant laws to introduce an interest rate capping law that is done in Kenya, for example, in order to enforce the central bank's monetary policy interventions. 3, economic stimulus packages with specific reference to the trade facilities, bars, entertainment places, and owners of private schools should be considered among the vulnerable groups that should receive priority consideration in the case of future economic stimulus packages. The committee notes that the private teachers were already granted funds out of the economic stimulus packages. However, these funds have not yet been accessed to date. A financial intermediary selected to handle the economic stimulus package should have physical regional presence, honorable members, and the funds should be distributed equitably throughout the regions of Uganda. Development institutions such as UDC and UDB must put in place a flexible arrangement for credit access that includes smaller businesses and informal sector that would otherwise not benefit under the existing criteria. The use of movable property, as security, as regulated by the Security Interest in Movable Property Act 2019, for example, should be fully operationalized to foster access to credit by the micro, small, medium enterprises. This will help minimize the risk that stimulus aggravates economic disparities. The Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development is urged to adopt a risk-sharing strategy like provision of credit guarantees to increase micro, small, medium access by lowering the amount of collateral that micro, small, medium enterprises need to pledge to receive a loan. A credit guarantee scheme would allow for higher risk borrowers to access credit. Uganda could borrow a leaf from Kenya, where it has set up a credit guarantee scheme to ensure access to credit by small, medium enterprises in the current pandemic crisis. The Auditor General should audit the management of economic stimulus package relief funds to ascertain the bottlenecks in the disbursement of the funds and provide recommendation. Lastly, government should come up with a legal framework containing specific guidelines and procedures for economic stimulus packages. Because when you send this money to UDB, for example, and it does not have specific guidelines, they'll use the existing guidelines. Given the nature of the COVID-19 pandemic, wide consultations with stakeholders and general public to tailor the economic stimulus package and fine-tune their parameters should be undertaken going forward. Honorable members, taxation, as pledged by the Minister of Finance, the responsible Minister of Finance, Trade and East African Community Affairs should renegotiate with the Council of Ministers under the existing legal framework and revise the legal notice to remove the determination of import duty for textiles in kilograms. This will support the traders who are already limping due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic in sustaining themselves in a business during these hard times. In the interim, the minister should make official communication requesting the Council of Ministers to suspend the implementation of the legal notices EAC 118/2021 and EAC 118/2021 that charged the transactional value to apply a duty rate of 35% or $3 per kilogram, whichever is higher for 1 year, as negotiated under. Waive, suspend excise duty on tax on internet and VAT for at least 6 months, or for the duration in which the country is in partial lockdown or full lockdown. As a compromise, income tax would rather be charged on the incomes earned from the use of internet. That is to say, it is better not to tax the use of internet, but to tax the effect of the use of internet. The committee recognizes that the lower the cost of data, the higher it is consumed and the higher the tax revenue generated. Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development should extend the waiver of VAT on accommodation in Kampala and upcountry hotels to 30th June 2022 to enable them recover sufficiently. Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development should extend the waiver of interest and penalties on VAT to 30th June 2022, set out under Section 40C of the Tax Procedures Code Act 2014. The Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development should review Section 38 of the Tax Procedures Code so that the penalties and interests are recognized pro rata with the principal tax at the time of payment. Lastly, restrictions in movement. Honorable members, where it does not offend public considerations, government should, during any further lockdown or restrictions, in movement between districts as much as possible, endeavor to simulate restrictions with the nature of the area, so that a city may not be cut out from the greater areas that it serves. For instance, Kampala City, Mukono, Wakiso, etc. In conclusion, honorable members, the committee set out to ascertain the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism, trade, and industry sectors, the factors that have exacerbated the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the sectors, and the efficacy of the strategies to mitigate the impact. The committee found that the government interventions, especially the economic stimuli package, had not achieved the intended objectives, in particular because of the lengthy process or guidelines that were involved. It is for this reason that the committee has made recommendations, if implemented, will ensure quick economic recovery for the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. Right, Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I beg to move.
I actually expected that. From you honorable members, thank you very, very much. But the honorable member was very smart in tricking the speaker. He announced at the beginning that the report is 50 pages, which is true, and that he would present only 20 pages, which is not true. He actually presented 47 pages, leaving only the appendices. It was a smart way to introduce to calm the nerves of the speaker down, but for next time, I'll be more careful. Honorable members, it's coming to 4 o'clock, which is Prime Minister's time. I'd expected that we'd finish with this and actually have a debate, but the chair has decided that he will use all the time, even for the debate. So we will not be able to debate this matter today. I ask you to look through this in more detail, because I think the report is quite good. You can't hear? Oh, sorry. The report is quite detailed, and I think it's just by coincidence now that we have to defer debate on it and look through the report so that we have a comprehensive and enriching debate on this rather important matter. So the motion that I propose for your debate is for adoption of the report of the Sectoral Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industry on building a more resilient sector, lessons learned from socioeconomic impact assessment of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism, trade and industry sector. That is the motion I propose for your debate. Is the motion seconded? Seconded by who? Casilo, Vale. For the record, I have to state Manjia, Kalangala, Hoima, Kapelebiong. The motion is properly placed, duly seconded by the entire House with a few representative names. Debate should have commenced now. It will not. We'll defer debate next week. And you pour on this report. I'm still speaking. You pour on this report, and then we'll have the discussions next week, because right now it's Prime Minister's question time. After that, I have an important motion on one of our members to be moved by the member for our left tongue. I'm hoping I'll be able to accommodate a debate on that immediately after the Prime Minister processes. Yes, Honorable Kahonda. On what matter do you rise?
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
No. On what matter do you rise before you thank me?
Mr. Speaker, I'm rising on your communication regarding the motion.
No. That one is finished. Please. Please. That one is finished, Honorable Kahonda. We'll deal with that next week. And what do you raise? Huh? Oh, no. We deferred it to next week. Honorable.
Right Honorable Speaker, I rise on a procedural matter.
Procedure.
Right Honorable Speaker, would it be procedure right if you directed that on the date we are debating this motion, which is key to the economy of this country, that you direct that the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Trade, and the Prime Minister be in attendance, such that we are able to either get responses or for them to take notes keenly, because I've seen, Right Honorable Speaker, there are issues of pertinent nature in the finance sector. If I were to name them, especially the taxation, where the traders are crying loud and loud. So, Right Honorable Speaker, if it is procedural right for you to direct, it's my prayer. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
On procedure. Honorable members, like I said yesterday, when the bell rings for the teacher to go to class, he does not need anybody to tell him or her that now go to class. The bell has rung. He has told for the Minister of Trade, the Minister of Finance, and the other sectors that are mentioned, including the Prime Minister, that classes will begin on Tuesday next week. So we don't need to direct them. If they don't show up, then there's a problem. But this debate will be next week. Yes. Procedure from Ruhinda. Procedure.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You have
Right Honorable
amended,
Speaker.
you have amended it now.
Yeah.
Proceed with the procedure.
Right Honorable Speaker, the procedure issue I'm raising, this matter is very, very important. And Mr. Speaker, with the SOPs here, the party chiefs designate members. And the members in the House here, they have been following keenly this report. Wouldn't it be procedurally right if you so direct that the members who have attended today's plenary be the same people to attend the plenary when this matter is being debated? I thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
To the extent possible, the whips have had the plea of the member. To the extent possible, please heed his call. But I'm sure even those members who are not in chamber, they're in different places, on Zoom, on television, following this very important discussion which has been presented by the chair. So I think to the extent possible and appropriate, we could do that, but there should not be a bar to other members who are followed keenly from elsewhere to be part of this discussion. We are not going to debate by procedure. We have other matters that we should be dealing with. The Prime Minister is not yet there. I will have time to deal with that issue with her privately, because 4 o'clock is supposed to be 4 o'clock, just like 2 o'clock is supposed to be 2 o'clock. But the Prime Minister is not yet here. But we'll deal with that at another level. I have some very quick responses to urgent matters. There was one from the Minister of Work, which should take about 2 minutes. Please call that item. And then the Minister of Health.
Item 4.1, response by the Minister of Works and Transport on the government's plan to rehabilitate the 96-kilometer Masaka-Chotera-Mutukura Road.
Honorable Minister, proceed.
Okay, thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker.
Yesterday, I had given a statement in regards to the rehabilitation, and the honorable member demanded I give a statement on the maintenance.
No, he requested.
And he demanded I should be specific, commit myself on behalf of the ministry when the maintenance plan is to start, in regards to the communication from the Prime Minister that by the 21st of next month, that the 100% maintenance plan will have started. So briefly, I can give out this statement within 1.5 minutes.
Proceed, Honorable Minister.
Right, Honorable Speaker, Honorable Members of Parliament, I stand here to make a statement on government's plan to maintain the 96-kilometer Masaka Kyotera Mutukula Road. Masaka Kyotera Mutukula Road is a national road with a total length of 83 kilometers, starting from Masaka City via Kyotera town to Mutukula at Uganda-Tanzania border, and it is being maintained by UNRA Masaka Station. That is a branch of UNRA in Masaka. The traffic on the road is comprised of both heavy cargo trucks and light vehicles. The way bridge at Mutukula is not operational because of lack of staff and equipment, but the government is working hard through Ministry of Finance to rectify this. Therefore, the road is deteriorating because of weak axle load control. The status of this road, Masaka Kyotera is a 43-kilometer paved road, and it is in fair motorable condition. And there is ongoing procurement of a private firm to carry out patching and shoulder discharge by the Directorate to Road Maintenance at the head office of UNRA here in Kampala. That now this problem cannot be handled by the other office of Masaka. Now it has come to head office. Kyotera Mutukula is a 45-kilometer paved road, and it is in poor motorable condition with a lot of potholes attributed to by high volume of axle loads. Maintenance activities, however, UNRA Masaka Station is currently doing pothole patching on the section of Kyotera Mutukula Road, both with gravel patching and asphalt patching. We have so far covered patching and sealing with bitumen from 31 and at 41 kilometer. As you can observe on the photos we have uploaded on your iPad, and the section from between 6 and 12 kilometer is yet to receive bitumen sealing. In the long term, the road was earmarked for rehabilitation, as I told you yesterday. And when you see those photos, that's the current work which is being done there. The challenges we have, the budget which UNRA receives, or which it received this first quarter for maintenance, of course, it comes from the Uganda Road Fund. UNRA requested about 80 billions for the approved plan of the first quarter to maintain those roads. And with the pandemic problem we have, due to some Ugandans who don't want to follow some simple SOPs like washing hands, wearing a mask, government didn't have funds, and they provided only 47 billions out of the 80 billions. And now the 47 billions was used to pay the service providers, those who had worked on other roads in the last financial year, and they were not paid. So they got these 47 billions, paid little, and now they are waiting for the next quarter, the release which they will give to get someone whom they can pay 100%. Then they request that person to go and work on the problem which the honorable member requested. The Prime Minister, she communicated the work would start on 21st of next month. That is so far the work which is going on from Kyotera Mutukula Road. And as I speak now, the honorable member maybe didn't check as was coming. The same simple repairs are being done on Masaka Kyotera Road. So if you want the 100% maintenance, maybe that commitment can be through the Ministry of Finance. If they do confirm, they will give us money depending on the need which UNRWA has, then I can commit myself. Right Honorable Speaker, sir, I beg to submit.
Your 1 minute was even way up. Thank you, Honorable Minister. I think we pause it there. Honorable John Paul Chotera, you still have a matter. I think let's monitor. Is there some toxic thing that is causing problems with people of Kasese and things like that? So you might want to restructure, Honorable, please. You might want to restructure this from urgent matters to either a question for oral answer or some other form that can provide avenue in clear terms, written terms, what you want them to find out and come back and report to the House. You might want to do that, but not now.
Thank you so much,
sir.
Thank
Not
you so
now.
much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I'll do exactly that. But I'm drawing the attention of the entire government to deploy industrial chemists to go and examine the asbestos element in those pipes. And I think this can wait. I appreciate you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. What I suggest is that put a formal question for oral answer, setting out clearly the issues you want addressed, so that we communicate this to the responsible people in the clear terms. Because extracting what you have stated now will provide another confusion about what you actually want to be done. So please do that, and then we can process it in the course of next week, and they give them time to come back and give us details of what their findings are on the issue of the burden is high in Kasese. The minister has responded to, but certainly there could be something happening there which needs to be found out. Yes, procedure from Dokolo.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, the matter of cancer prevalence, I think, is all over the country. And for us to request this information through Kasese would be unfair to the people of Dokolo. I think it's a matter which touches on all of us from all over the country. So we would want either a relevant committee of parliament to research thoroughly into the reason why cancer prevalence is getting higher and higher, and then we all debate it and see how we can mitigate it. But yesterday, Right Honorable Speaker, if you recall, when we talked about climate change, it has its own impact on the prevalence of cancer, because the government has failed to control polythene bags or polythene materials, polypropylene materials, and we don't even have a law that regulates or a legal framework to ensure that we have good quality.
The procedural matter?
The procedural matter I'm arising on, Right Honorable Speaker, is that we require a committee of parliament, maybe the Committee on Health, to present a well-researched and a well-documented paper for us to discuss and diagnose the causes of cancer in the country generally, so that we can focus on that rather than just focus on Kasese. It's a serious matter that affects the entire country, including Dokolo, where I come from.
Thank you very much. I think that's what the minister said, that the prevalence is countrywide. But this specific issue of Kasese has to do with the predominance of asbestos materials in the area. Now, the suspicion is that this could be contributing to the incidence of cancer. So that makes it specific to that request. It does not stop the minister from widening this or the Committee on Health to deal with this. But I think this, you reduce it in the form I've stated, let the government go there and find out and inform us. It could be possible, maybe it's an alarm that may not be true, but it could be true. If it is true, remedial measures have to be taken to deal with it. Yes. On what matter do you raise, Ambassador?
Right Honorable Speaker, on the same issue of asbestos from Kasese, if it is just a question of asbestos, it cannot be limited to Kasese. Most of our secondary schools have dormitories and classrooms with the asbestos roofings. The police, the prisons, the army barracks, they have roofings of asbestos. So this research, in my view, cannot be limited to Kasese only. Since, as the minister has said, the incidence of cancer is all over the country. So why don't we broaden it to cover the whole country, the impact of asbestos on the lives of Ugandans. Thank you.
No, but I think we do research by sample. This matter has come up from Kasese. You could do Kasese as a sample. And then in law, we say the sample shall correspond to the bulk. We will now then apply that if this is happening here this way, then the presence of asbestos in Koboko, in other places, could be causing these problems as well. But at least let's start from the request, let's start from Kasese, and then we see how to roll these things out to find a solution. Okay, Prime Minister's question time.
Item 6 on the order paper, Prime Minister's time.
How do you deal with this matter in this new rules amended? I'm used to the other one. The spontaneous one. I used to like it very much. But now they have reduced it to writing. So now how do we deal with the questions? Question number 1 from Honorable Margaret from Ushaija. Now what do we do with the questioner who is not in the house? So what do we do with this question? Right Honorable Prime Minister, I suggest you will only be mentioning the names of the people who asked the question. And since you had the question already, you read the question and give the answer. So that we don't have to worry, because this is now for the House. We don't have to worry about a member, whether a member is present or a member is absent. But now you read the question and you give your answer. Proceed, Right Honorable.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable colleagues, Honorable Wabshija, Margaret asked a question that recently and specifically, sometime back, 14 girls were rescued from a guest house called Papaya Holiday Home in Muyenga. And these girls were to be trafficked by one Ndagire Doros of NGO called Maya Project Uganda chapter. And she was claiming to be collaborating with a UK NGO that is not registered in Uganda. For the reasons best known to the owner of the NGO, these girls were being forced to sleep with dogs on the same bed at night and during the day. The same girls were being forced to carry these dogs around the compound all the time. Right Honorable Speaker, my response is that I want to thank the Honorable Member for raising this matter. This matter was first reported to the police by a whistleblower. When this matter came up, the police immediately swung into action as follows. The police visited the said Papaya Holiday Home in Muyenga Zone in the night of 20th July 2021. Upon reaching the home, they found the suspect, Ndagire, and the 14 girls, 13 of whom were aged 4 to 17 years and 119. The police rescued the 14 girls and handed them over to Uganda Network on Laws and Ethics and HIV, that is Uganet, a gazetted facility for safe custody. The suspect Ndagire was arrested a case of suspected aggravated trafficking in children was opened against her. Investigations have further revealed that the Papaya Holiday Home in Muyenga has never been licensed by the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development to operate a children's home. It was therefore, honorable colleagues, operating illegally. The girls have been subjected, or they were subjected to a medical examination for possible sexual acts. The findings show that there was no evidence of the 13 girls ever engaging in sexual acts, save for the other older girl of 19 years. COVID-19 tests were also done on the 14 girls. The good news is that they were all negative. Meanwhile, a professional counselor was hired to provide psychosocial support as part of the process for their rehabilitation. Police confirmed that none of the girls slept with the dogs as earlier alleged. Statements have been also recorded from the directors of Mercy Child Care, a child home where the suspected claims to be working, the suspect claimed to be working as a volunteer. That Honorable Speaker, some people have since come up claiming to be claiming to be parents of the children. These were two investigated on how their children got into the hands of Ndagire. But the DNA tests confirm that they are the true parents and the children have since been handed over. Honorable Speaker, I wish to confirm, I wish to inform you and confirm that the entire August House, that investigations by police have been finalized and the file has been handed over to DPP for further action. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank you and thank Honorable Wabushaija for raising this matter and showing genuine concern on the safety of the well-being of our Ugandan children. The second question was again from Honorable Wabushaija, that there is also a problem of cross-border human trafficking in East African community. The New Vision paper of 22nd July published a story of girls brought from Rwanda and are sold as low as 30,000 as wives to Ugandan men in Mitiana, which has been the practice since 2016. As if that is not enough, on July 23rd, a court in Nairobi declined to sentence 20 Ugandan girls who were arrested in a probe on suspected cases of human trafficking to man. These girls were using the Kenyan security stamps and entered Kenya through Busia, Malaba, and Ruakaka border posts. My response, Right Honorable Speaker, is that government is making significant efforts in eliminating child trafficking. And these efforts include in July 2020, the government adopted the National Referral Guidelines, which provides victims referral guidelines for stakeholders, including police, immigration officials, the prosecution unit, NGOs, described social services resources, and recommendations for victim protection. Government has continued to operate under the implementing regulations of the 2009 Anti-Trafficking Act. These regulations outline the responsibilities for relevant stakeholders, including law enforcement, medical professionals, civil society members, to combat trafficking. Government has increased prosecution of suspected traffickers and increased training to law enforcement personnel. Right Honorable Speaker, in addition, investigated allegations of complicity in trafficking crimes created a human trafficking officer position within the Ugandan police force
and the Criminal Investigation Department, CID. Government has increased awareness, raising campaigns, launched, funded, and implemented the National Action Plan for Prevention of Trafficking in Persons, Uganda 2019-2024. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit. The other question was also coming from the same member, and she was like, it is also disheartening that a 14-year-old girl in Hoima City by the name of Daphne Nachimuli committed suicide because she had been treated as a laughing stock in the community after scoring aggregate 25 in the recently released PROE at which a Muslim primary school. She left a note indicating that her parents and neighbors were harassing her for the poor performance. These kinds of infringements point to a society gone morally wrong. I call upon the necessary government agencies, this was her question, to see that the rights of children are protected at all times, and that parents and guardians are urged to be more responsible for the welfare of children under their care. She also said that it is also surprising that none of the parents or guardians recorded a statement of a missing child anywhere. That her prayer was that the government should come up with a report on the above mentioned cases, informing this August House on the measures that have been put in place to curb the unbecoming, embarrassing, and dehumanizing infringement against the girl child. Honorable Speaker, my response is, it is very unfortunate and regrettable that the life of such a younger girl by the name of Daphne Nachimuli was terminated at such a tender age and in a cruel manner. Government has put in place legal and policy framework to that the children of Uganda enjoy their fundamental right to survive, for survival and health, protection and participation, development and education. Honorable Speaker, what happened in Hoima, which led the girl to commit suicide, is an aspect of parental and community failures. The government, through Ministry of Gender, developed parenting guidelines and the National Child Policy 2020, and continues to disseminate and sensitize communities on their duties under the law, policy, and guidelines. Honorable Speaker, the Local Government Act, as amended, gives the responsibility of child well-being to the vice chairpersons of local councils. This responsibility seems not to be taken seriously. That's why such unfortunate situations of children committing suicide happens. The mandated grassroots structures are not protecting the children. Honorable Speaker, the police in Hoima swung into action and arrested the alleged people who castigated and ridiculed Daphne Nachimuli, making her commit suicide because of poor PROE results. I don't know whether Honorable Agnes is around up there. I think she can read her question.
No, just proceed the way you are doing now.
Can I proceed?
You proceed.
Since she's around, I would suggest she write Honorable Speaker that she reads her question, so that I can also take a bottle of water.
Abolata district. Is that you are doing for Dr. Achuti?
Yes, I have the question on.
Huh?
I have the question here with me.
Which one? I thought the next question was from Honorable Dr. Opia Achuti. Yeah, it was from Right on, it was from Dr. Pierre Churi, who is here. Do you remember the question in its full?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and the Right Honorable Prime Minister. My question to the Prime Minister is on relation to the low prioritization of the national road network in the Lango sub-region. And I'll give a very brief preamble before posing the three questions.
Just pose the question.
So the question one, because of the low prioritization, Mr. Speaker, one of the roads that has been affected is the Lira Kamdini Road. And we want to know, when is the rehabilitation of the Lira Kamdini Road going to commence? The contract was signed in 2018. It's now more than 2 years. There are no works that have begun on site. What we are seeing is continuous maintenance. But we're also concerned that because of the extensive delays, there's been a lot of degradation that has taken place on that road. So we want to know whether reconstruction will be done. That is the first question. The second question is on the Karuma Bridge, which, as I've highlighted, has a lot of poor safety features. It has very low railings on the side. It has a sharp descent. It has a sharp bend on it. Just in April this year, a truck lost control and plunged into the river, killing 2 people. This is not the first time, but we pray it is the last. So we want to know, when is this bridge going to be rebuilt, and what are the interim safety features to ensure that no more lives are lost on that? The third and the last question is, considering the low prioritization on the Lango roads, Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to your attention that in the last 10 years, government has constructed 31 roads, totaling to 2,130.2 kilometers. But none of these roads have been in the Lango sub-region. So considering the low prioritization, we want to know, is there any affirmative action for the national roads in the Lango sub-region that the government can consider? Thank you.
Right Honorable.
Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable Opio, Doctor, allow me to thank you. The status of rehabilitating Lira Kamdini Road, and of course the planned measures to improve safety at the Karuma Bridge, and government plans for the Lango sub-region. Honorable members, the Rwenkunye Apache Lira Haranga Road, 191 kilometers, is one of the national roads selected for upgrading by government of Uganda as part of the third National Development Plan, NDP3. The road is part of the National Road Network, which is managed by the Ministry of Works and the Uganda National Roads Authority, UNRA. The upgrading of the road is expected to improve access to Apache district and provide an alternative route connecting Kampala to Lira City and the northern region at large. The status of rehabilitating of Lira Kamdini Road. Honorable Speaker, is Lira Kamdini Road is part of the large project called the Northeastern Road Corridor Assess Management Project. This project covers the Tororo Mbale Soroti Lira Kamdini Corridor, a total of 340 kilometers. The project is being implemented in the form of output and performance-based contracting. The total financing for the project is $255 million US dollars, funded by World Bank in partnership with the government of Uganda. Right Honorable Speaker, the ongoing intervention on the Kamdini Lira section of the corridor will involve rehabilitating the entire section to allow the road to serve for over 20 years. After rehabilitation is finished, The contract also allows for routine maintenance activities for another 80 years to keep the road in the motorable condition. Honorable Speaker, the rehabilitation works on Kamudin Lira have been delayed due to requirements for environmental approvals for quarry sites. As the processing of the approvals for the sites continues, the Ministry of Works through UNRA obtained an approval from the World Bank to undertake emergency repairs in order to keep the road motorable. The emergency works involved reshaping the road and maintaining it for a smooth gravel surface free from potholes. In the meantime, the process of getting approved quarry sites is proceeding well, and the contractor is expected to commence the major civil works to rehabilitate Lira Kamudin section by October 2021. The status of Karuma. Honorable Speaker, Karuma Bridge is one of the important bridges on the national road network connecting the northern regions to the capital city. The bridge serves as a gateway to the greater northern region and on our neighbors of the Republic of South Sudan. Considering its importance and strategic nature, the government of Uganda has prioritized the replacement of Karuma Bridge during the NDP3 period, that is 2021 to 2024-2025. The feasibility study and detailed engineering designs for the new bridge are complete, and discussions have been initiated with the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, to consider financing the construction of that bridge. Government plans for the road in Lango sub-region. Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, the government of Uganda is committed to the equitable development of all the regions of Uganda, and this is included as an objective in the new Vision 2040, and also taken into account in the development of the national development plans. Colleagues and honorable member, Right Honorable Speaker, I have directed the Minister of Works to organize a special presentation for the members of Parliament from the region outlining government's program in all regions of the country. Now, Honorable Ape.
Proceed. Oh, yeah, or the next one.
Yeah, thank you,
Good.
Right Honorable Prime Minister and Right Honorable Speaker. I had 3 questions for the Prime Minister. One was on the issue of killing, rape, torture, and extortion in Lake Kyoga and Lake Pania that surrounds Amolata district. We also are cognizant that the Fisheries Protection Unit deployment was meant for the good. However, my people are concerned that individual members of the UPDF have turned these lakes into a war zone. For example, just on 2nd June this year, Omara Patrick was stabbed to death and 8 people were extorted of money. This case was reported to police. I've given the Prime Minister the police reference file number. A 16-year-old girl, Ekit Naume, was raped in broad daylight by a uniformed man. Case was reported to police. I've given the reference number of the police case. And I've also got a police report confirming these incidents. A total of over 65 torture victims have been beaten. The wounds are horrible. I have pictures that I would have attached to this, but the rules of procedures did not provide for that. Yesterday, the minister confirmed here that over 30,000 fishermen and women lost their fishing gears. Honorable Prime Minister, my questions were that how far has government gone with the investigation and prosecution of these accused UPDF officers? And what plans are in place to support these families of the dead, the girl who is raped, and the futures shattered, and the torture victims? So that were the issues around torture. And also the issue of providing alternative livelihood for over 30,000 families that have lost their livelihood as a result of this operation. The second question is about the road from Namasale to Dokolo. In 2015, our people were excited as they neared towards the election of 2016 that the road would start in the next 6 months. People's properties were marked for compensation. Up to tomorrow, nobody has returned back there. My question is, what is the progress of this road construction? And I've checked through all the reports of the planned roads under UNRWA, and none of those roads this road is not reflected in that list. The final issue of Amolatar that I raised to the Prime Minister is the issue of floods. And we want to thank you, Right Honorable Prime Minister, that we have received very minimal relief supports, and yet the number of the affected people are quite high. Right Honorable Speaker, Amolatar is one of the districts with the lowest lowest level of land compared to the neighboring districts of Nakasongola, Dokolo. It is really lying at 1,300 feet. And therefore, it exposes this district to be the most vulnerable in the event of the rising water levels of these lakes. And my prayer to the Prime Minister was that we request you to visit. You've visited rivers which are burst banks, but we want you to come and visit a district where 2 lakes have burst these banks, and the poor people are there in the middle. All our roads have been flooded. 14 out of the 16 sub-counties are flooded. The only hospital that we have in the district, Amai Community Hospital, and several schools have been flooded. And therefore, my question is, what plans do you have for the people of Amolatar? Thank you.
Right Honorable.
Right Honorable Speaker, the first question I think is new. The one of rape. I pledge to bring it next week so that I bring concrete answers to that question. The second question, the project of the road. This project is reflected both in the National Development Plan 3 and the NRM Manifesto, and is scheduled to be implemented within this term of office, starting from 2023-2024. The detailed engineering designs have been completed, and the acquisition of land for the project right of way is scheduled to commence in October this year, in the second quarter. Colleagues, Agnes is a friend, and of course, she reported to my office, and we have already got the status of the floods in Amurata district, which was submitted by the district local government to our office. The different government agencies have communicated to the study, have been involved to study the report and take immediate action. My office has already dispatched the relief food and non-food items, which include 1,200 blankets, 700 taplings, 75 kilograms of maize flour, and 26 kilograms of beans. Right Honorable Speaker, For the last 2 months I've been in the office, I have been able to visit a number of places. I would definitely go to Amrata. This is my friend. And that Honorable Speaker, recently when I was in Nakasongora, I found out that there is a live electric network under the water. You know, there is a place that used to be called Mone landing site. It was almost at the level of a town council, but all of it is submerged. So I found those live wires as we are going to see the school, so that we appraise ourselves on what to do for those communities. We found that some poles were almost collapsing, and that would be a disaster. So I directed Ministry of Energy, who have disconnected that line. Otherwise, even your people would have died, because you know, electricity is a good conductor. Water is a good conductor of electricity. It could be a disaster, but we have been able to cut it short. That Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit.
Thank you very much. Next.
Is Honorable Wakaima around? Yes.
Your question, Honorable.
Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues and Member of Parliament. My question, I had two questions. One of the question was about the roads in Wakiso. And the President had a directive some time back that all the roads that are to be done, Maram Road in local governments, have to be well graveled. But when we see UNRA, the way they are doing the roads are not entirely graveled. And that creates a lot of dust, potholes, and they become impassable. And that is the road that has come from Matuga, Wakiso, Bulova, and Sanji. All these, the road is impassable. So I was asking you, Right Honorable Speaker, through you, the Speaker, when is that directive of the President should be put in action so that we have things done well? The other question, Madam Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, was about the town councils. There was previously town councils would do one Tamaka road, but to our dismay, we have two town councils in Wakiso, Wakachiri and another one. They have never done any Tamaka road in Wakiso for almost 10 years. So why is this directive not also implemented? Right Honorable.
Right Honorable, before you respond, let me make some recognition here. Honorable members, in the VIP gallery this afternoon, we have Honorable Titus Edward Songiso Valo, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs of the Republic of Malawi. He is here to observe our proceedings. Please join me again in welcoming him. You're welcome, sir. Right Honorable.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Though the colleague has changed his question, because the first question he raised was...
That's why it would have been safer for you to read the question and proceed.
Yes. So the President directed that all Maram roads in local governments should be repaired and gravelled from time to time. However, honorable members, you are aware, some of you are members of the District Roads Committee and the others are leaders in that regard. The issue of gravelling in the local government is a local government priority. Funds dispatched to local governments are meant to repair, gravel, and maintain roads. Some local governments decided to budget and open new roads at the expense of the already existing roads. I have directed the Minister of Local Government, together with the Minister of Works and Transport, to work with the districts to see that there is proper planning and budgeting for enough fuel, and always to run the roads equipment so that all the roads are gravelled and maintained from time to time. Then the second question was about town councils. Town councils are supposed to at least up to a kilometer of tarmac, to get at least a kilometer of tarmac road each financial year. Town councils receive funds for three elements: periodic mechanized maintenance, routine mechanized maintenance, and the routine manual maintenance. It has been a policy of the road fund to give priority for tarmac to town councils with no tarmac roads throughout the country. In the event the construction of any national road in which it passes, the town council is given at least 2 to 3 kilometers of tarmac. That Honorable Speaker, I beg to move.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Irene Mononi is not around, and I request that I read her question.
Proceed.
She told me she has gone to Bulambuli.
But, Right Honorable Speaker, the Right Honorable Prime Minister has talked about local government. The road that I'm talking about is not under local government, not Wakiso district. It is under UNRA. So this road, you find that they just bring soils of any kind that is not good. That is the Matuga, Wakiso, Bulova, Sanji. It's not under Wakiso district, it's under UNRA.
That Honorable, like I said, that is a new question. I will come with an answer next week. Bulambuli district is found on the slopes of Mount Elgon with a very difficult terrain. Its main economic activities include growing Arabic coffee, bananas, Irish, peas, beans, personal fruits, horticulture, apiary, piggery, goat rearing, among others. This area borders with Mount Elgon National Park. So tourism is one of the potential products. The access roads are impassable because of the volcanic soils which get washed away every season. That HE, the President, recognized this challenge and advised on the lasting solution of constructing these roads using low-cost sealing technology in such areas. The road from Simukona, Masira, Bulago, Umasabo, Buruganya, Buyaga, of about 50 kilometers, serving 2 constituencies in Bulambuli, namely Elgon North, Elgon, and Elgon was included in the NRM Manifesto 2016-2021, among other roads in the region and the country for implementation. This road was further included in the national budget of 2016-2017, but no implementation was done. To their surprise, this road disappeared from the NRM Manifesto of 2021-2026, and yet it has never been implemented. To make matters worse, according to Moroni, this road that is in the central government maintenance schedule was given to a contractor who has been on ground since last year, but has not completed the maintenance work to date. Whenever the heavy rains begin, the road become extremely impassable. She asked the Right Honorable Prime Minister, I am seeking your indulgence in establishing the state of affairs pertaining to this road and the government plans for providing a permanent solution to the people of Bulambuli. This is my response. Right Honorable Speaker, the road network in question is reflected on our national database as Simukona Kaserini, that is 10 kilometers, and Buyaga Buruganya Buregenyi Sisi Burago 27 kilometers, totaling 37 kilometers instead of the said 50 kilometers. The balance of 13 kilometers is under Bulambuli District Local Government road network. The two road sections are currently being maintained by two contractors, namely Engineers Investment Limited for Buyaga Buruganya Buregenyi Sisi Burago and Bona Enterprises Limited for Simukona Kaseren under the framework contract phase 2. Right Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit. I have put enough information for members to note. The mechanized maintenance of the selected paved way roads on page 21. I have also shown you the cost and the period when this road will be completed. That is October 2023. And the scope of work, what it entails. I've also put enough photos for you to know where we have reached. And of course, up to the last page. Right Honorable Speaker, members can go through these and know what we have done in that part of the country. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable. Next item. On what matter do you rise?
Rule 41, Sub Rule 9, Mr. Speaker. As you are aware, I'm the acting leader of opposition. And by this rule...
Proceed.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Speaker, let me also add my voice to yours to recognize the presence of the legislator from Malawi who is in the public gallery. You are most welcome. And greetings from the leader of opposition. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Right Honorable Prime Minister for the responses that she has made, and I suppose she has been in strict adherence to the rule that requires her to make written responses to the members in advance. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, as a matter of courtesy, the Right Honorable Prime Minister, this is an omission on your part. You ought to have also availed me copies of those responses. Oh, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I take issue with that question that was raised by the honorable member from Amorata, where a girl child has been raped by a uniformed man, UPDF officer, and no response as yet has been made on that. That is a matter of urgency, Mr. Speaker. And
the Prime Minister said that question was not captured by the system that was sent to her. She'll be responding next time.
Most obliged.
Yes.
But in the future, Mr. Speaker, those are questions that are of urgent public importance that require lots of attention. Because in that question, there is also 65 torture cases.
Honorable, the system is such that you do these questions, they put it in a box, they turn it around, and then they select, I think, 15 of them. So some of them, the person who asked the question think they are included in the first, and yet they may not have been picked. And that's how you have the Honorable Wakahima asking a different question from what was picked. He might have asked that question and another one. So I don't know how we can solve this, because I can ask 3 questions and I'm expecting my other question to be the one to have been picked and expecting answers from it when they pick another one. So I stand up now to ask my question, and it's different from what was sent to the Prime Minister. You get the dilemma. Yeah, so we need to find a way of streamlining. That's what we're effective.
Much obliged, Right Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, the 30,000 people who have been deprived of their normal lives in that district of the distinguished woman member of Parliament ought to be given humanitarian attention, because as we talk, their normal lives have been disrupted. Literally, I must say they are displaced because of this fisheries protection force that has occasioned a lot of, actually, as you can see, even cases of torture mentioned, a lot of gross human rights violations. And so you should go an extra mile to attend to these 30,000, because she has even alluded to the loss of their fishing gears to the force that is supposed to protect them. Madam Speaker, question of roads, if I could lump it together, like the one of Lira Apache Camden, the 340 which you have pledged every, that the project is being implemented. But what is at issue is the snail's pace at which this implementation is done. Implementation indeed, but taking ages, and then coupled with the shoddy works, like the Honorable Kaima has already informed the House, that the road from Matuka to Vlova is being worked on by UNRA, but it's full of potholes. These UNRA officials compromise the quality of roads because of corruption. And the corruption is the challenge that this country has. And your office, the office of the Prime Minister, is equally riddled, as you have helped. And I must salute you recently when you cracked the whip on those that had bought substandard items, both relief and food and non-food items. Keep it up and ensure that heads roll, not that after interdiction they are back in office. And indeed, I've seen it in the papers that after your directive, they are back in office, they have been cleared. Mr. Speaker, the challenge with these girls being trafficked, the trafficking in persons or human trafficking in Uganda, is because of the mass unemployment, the poverty. And these traffickers are exploiting majorly our girls and even young men because of poverty, because they are jobless, and COVID-19 even exacerbated the case because it inflicted a lot of devastating effects on those who were employed. Most of them lost their jobs and they are being exploited. Government, therefore, should come up with a presentation, and I must say the Prime Minister, on the state of the economy and how even the stimulus package, which you launched in your office, should be distributed evenly out there, so that it does not end up in a double paying.
Procedure, Speaker. Procedure.
Procedure?
Right, Honorable Speaker, for the purpose of record, the leader of the opposition rose under rule. He announced that he was rising under Rule 21. But when I look at our rules, I think he meant Rule 41, subsection 9, for the purpose of record. Right Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Did you say 21 or
Rule
41?
41, subsection 9.
Did you say 41 or 21?
He said 40, he said 21. You said 41.
Yes.
Subsection 9.
Yes.
No, sub-rule. My senior.
But
colleague.
also the record should be corrected. You stated something about the road. I think the geographical location may be a source of this problem. You said Lira Apache Kambini Road. That is putting all the way upside down. The road you are referring to is Rekunye, Apache, Lira, Orang, Acholibu. That is the road you are referring to. Kambini is a bit off completely from Lira along that. Let the records be corrected.
Okay. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for the correction. I think he raised 3 questions for the 2 different roads. But because I had summed them together, that's why I seemed to have mentioned them together. But thanks for the correction. A quick one on the girls that are forced to sleep with dogs or even carry them around. I think this is done by the so-called, some of so-called investors in quotes.
I thought they said that the findings from the police were found that not to be true.
It was the police, of course, have even
No,
recommended.
please don't alter the records. The records show that the police did the investigation and found those allegations not to be true. Now you want to amend them. The leader of the opposition shall respect the record of Parliament.
Much obliged, my Right Honorable Speaker. But I must salute the police for the work they have done, and they recommended professional counseling and psychosocial support. That was good work done, and I must salute it. Mr. Speaker, finally, the question of the 14-year Nachimuli in Hoima who committed suicide. There might be many more cases in the country of such who are frustrated, traumatized, and lack of counseling and end up taking their lives. In the past, schools used to have senior women teachers. I don't know how it ended. That was very helpful. Even there was that department of counseling and guidance. So this to you, Right Honorable Prime Minister, you would ask the line Ministry of Education and Sports to resume or to put in practice what is in limbo. Because it is, I know these school women teachers are still there, but they are not active and are not facilitated. The question of Rambole, I'm conflicted, but it's a very important one. Because there are many roads that are disappearing from the NRM manifesto, including mine of Duda Sacha Road, which was meant to be tarmacked. And we don't know what is happening because it is a mysterious disappearance of roads. I could mention 5 of them in the sub-region. So take it up, and even the contractors who are supposed to be doing graveling or periodic maintenance are not doing the right work. They use maram, which is substandard, and it is all about compromising the quality so that they remain with most of the money in their pockets. I thank you and salute you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very, very much, the leader of the opposition, for those comments on the responses given by the Prime Minister to questions raised by the honorable members of this August House. Honorable members, looking at the time, we will now have the next item and see how to
Mr.
proceed.
Speaker, sir.
You have
Item
you have
5.
accessed the microphone before I have allowed you. Please resume your seat.
Item 5, in the order paper, motion for a resolution of Parliament.
No. Is it the one? No, honorable members, I don't know whether the mover thinks this would be a good time to move this motion. I've discussed it with her. She thinks she should move it when the House is better constituted, and so that they can have a better recognition of this parliamentary hero. He's one of our own, but now he has been recognized by the world. Our own sentiment is that might not be a good time to do it now. So I think we defer to next week when the House is proper. Yes, you want to speak to what I've just said?
Yes, Right Honorable Speaker. You've stated it very rightly, because we are talking about one of our very own who is in the House, Honorable Julius Achonbua. And I think people are exhausted. It's my thinking. So if it wouldn't hurt, I think we could push it to next week. Thank you.
I think let's deal with item 7 and we see how to proceed.
Item 7 on the order paper, statement on government business for the succeeding week, 31st August, 2nd September 2021.
Right Honorable.
Right Honorable Speaker. Rule 28 of our rules of procedure requires the leader of government business to make a statement in the House regarding the government business of the succeeding week. I'm therefore submitting the following business for the succeeding week, the 31st August to 2nd September 2021. Number 1, motion for a resolution of Parliament to authorize government to take over Mountains of the Moon University as a public university. Number 2, statement on the state of healthcare service delivery in Uganda and the budgetary implication. 3, a statement on the status of livestock quarantine in the cattle corridor due to foot and mouth disease. Number 4, statement on the status of the refugees in Uganda. Statement on the status of disasters in the country. And lastly, statement on the status of the environmental conservation in Uganda. Honorable Speaker, I beg to submit.
Thank you very much. But Right Honorable Prime Minister, those heavily loaded statements that require a lot of time, for example, the one on environment, it's quite heavy. We had a bit of discussion on the statement from the minister yesterday. The statement on disaster, the situation of disaster in the country is another heavy one. It will attract a lot of debate. So we will see how to phase it out, which one can be accommodated and which one might not. I think you also now need to do internal assessment to see which ones are heavy, which cannot be accommodated within 1 week, so that you assist the House in making proposals that can be executed. But these are quite loaded, but it's well received. And members take note that some of these issues will show up next week together with the debate on item 3, which we deferred the debate upon on this report from the sectoral committee on tourism, trade and industry, which is important. And also the second one, which we're not able to handle, which is the motion for resolution of Parliament to congratulate the Honorable Julius Achonbua for the induction into the World Olympians Association as Olympian for Life. That discussion we'll be having them next week. There being no other business, House adjourned to Tuesday next week.